I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Mike McGowan. I'm chairman of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. And I'd like to welcome you to all of you to this committee meeting this morning, October 6, 2021. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive. And a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the website after the meeting's conclusion. I would like to announce that due to COVID, we are limiting the number of attendees at today's meeting to the extent possible. Unvaccinated people are required to wear masks, and all attendees are encouraged to abide by the 6-foot social distancing rule. In the interest of protecting the health and safety of any members of the public who wish to address the board, they may do so from an adjacent conference room. Thank you for your cooperation in this regard. I'd like to invite now our Vice President of Safety, Security, and Business Continuity, Shane Hunter, to provide a briefing regarding protocol for those individuals in attendance today at the board meeting in the event of an emergency. Shane?
Good morning. We are on the first floor at M.U.D headquarters. And in addition to the normal entry and exit routes at the rear of the room that we all use, there's also an emergency exit located here on the side. In that hallway right outside that door is the nearest fire extinguisher, as well as a first aid kit and the nearest AED. With the location of that AED in mind, can I have a show of hands of who's CPR trained in the room? Okay, thank you. If there is a medical emergency, 911 will be contacted by the security desk and they'll escort them into the room. Severe weather shelter is also in that same hallway through this door. And if we need to leave this room for any reason and evacuate the building, we'll go through that same door, take 2 lefts, and reconvene in the parking garage where we'll conduct an accountability roll call. That concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Frost. Frost.
What am I doing?
Here. No, you say here.
It's roll call, Jack.
McGowan.
By surprise.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard. Here. Kavanaugh.
Here.
Bagley.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Friend.
Here.
Open Meetings Act. I'd like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall in the back of the room, and a copy is also available in the nearby conference room set aside for members of the public who may attend. Okay, construction and operation, capital expenditures. Gina?
Good morning. Gina Langle, Senior Vice President, Chief Operations Officer. But behind tab 5 is our capital expenditures letter. I have several items to discuss today. As you can see, they're sprinkled throughout the subdivisions on the letter. I will be talking about 5 of the system improvements and 2 of the building plants and equipment. The first item is under system improvement. It's number 2. It will be found on page 2. This is to replace 2 Carter Lake water meter vaults. Right now, there are 4 wholesale water meters and vaults that supply water to Carter Lake. 2 of the oldest meters were installed in 1977, and they've become obsolete and require replacement. One is even in a driveway to a convenience store. These vaults flood due to the high water table elevations in the area and must be pumped out monthly to read the meters, and parts inside these meters have to be replaced due to the water damage that occurs with them. When looking at the revenue collected from the wholesale water rates, it was cost prohibitive to actually make these vaults waterproof. So we will be using waterproof techniques on the equipment in the vault to make sure that it's watertight and to protect the equipment. Telemetry is being used to be put above ground so that we can have drive-by meter reading each month. And the district crews will be doing the replacement of this work, and we will make sure that the valving and so forth is outside, the vaults and the valving will be outside of traffic and behind sidewalks. The thing to keep in mind in this particular case is these vaults are not going to be waterproof. We are only making it so that we can safely do the work on these vaults and that the equipment is protected. The new vaults will have large access hatches that significantly improve the water service's ability to read, test, and maintain these meters. Also, the other 2 meters, we will be bringing back to have those replaced in the future. Those will be likely in 2022. Do you have any questions about this particular item?
Gina,
Yes.
how much extra would it cost to make a waterproof hall?
I don't know the answer to that on there, but what we did looked at the revenue that we got from that particular one, and it far exceeded what it would cost for us to be able to do that because of the water table elevations that were in that area. But I can get that answer for you if you'd like.
Even it cost prohibitive on the revenue, even looking out in like over a 5-year, 10-year period, or?
That's what we looked over that particular, yes.
Thank you.
Gina, what would it cost to do a complete relocation so that the whole problem would be solved? And also, can it be an ERT meter, or does it have to be physically read every month?
This particular meter, they're very large meters that we have that go in there, and we are taking them outside of paving and we are moving them to the side. We are doing that portion of it. But when you have a meter, you put it in the place where you're actually having the water transfer for that. So to completely remove that, you would actually have to do some relocations of mains, which again gets into that part where it's cost prohibitive.
Thanks.
This is Mark Doyle, President. I'd like to make just a few quick comments on this one. Can you hear me? My button's on. Okay, got it. Can you hear me now? All right. This is one of those processes that if we would have just let it go, we would have outrun any revenue that we got off of this. It isn't that much revenue. It would have almost been better just to say, don't even measure it. We know about what they use every year. So I have to commend the group for stopping and taking a hard look at it and maybe not taking the approach of just don't meter it. We know, this is an easy one to gauge. But to go ahead and try to make some changes that are responsible in the interest of revenue. So I have to commend the group for looking at it and bringing it to me, and this is one of those that I wasn't aware of. So that's why it sounds a little different than it normally would. So it's a really good approach here. Thank you, Gina.
Any other questions? Okay, the second item is item number 4. That is on page 2. This is a $3.2 million CNA that we're bringing to here, and it's to install pipe metering and to upgrade the Northern Natural Gas M.U.D. town border station around 116th and Fort Streets. This project is needed for OPPD's Power with Purpose initiative. The piping and equipment are being installed to get the natural gas services to OPPD's Standing Bear Lake power generation facility. We will be putting in piping, we will have a gas meter, and the upgrades to the TBS will be due to the pressures and flows that will be needed to serve that facility. This work needs to be done by November 1st of 2022. Mark Mendenhall will be talking about one of the agreements that we are working with OPPD on right now. There are several agreements that we are working with them. What we do want you to know was this was a multi-year analysis that's been completed to assure that we have the proper paybacks and the ROI that is important for this work. This $3.2 million is included in that analysis. OPPD and M.U.D. have worked diligently to ensure that the needs for both of the companies are met and that our ratepayers are protected in the partnership. Again, Mark Mendenhall will be talking about part of this here in just a little bit. I'm happy to take questions now, or we can have questions, when he comes up and has his part as well. Okay, the next item is item number 5 on pages 2 and 3. It's for $752,000, and it's to install 550 feet of 30-inch water main in 192nd from Gray Fawn Plaza and Harney Street. This was a CNA that was approved by the board on November 5th of 2020. It's for a massive development. It's a multi-million-dollar development that is about 200 acres. This was relocation work that was brought to us, and initially, the county was to pay for this work and have it reimbursed by the developer. But for various reasons, Douglas County has chosen to fund much of this project. Most of the costs for the roadway development are normally passed to the adjacent developers, as you all know. But the county now has agreed will be doing this instead of having that done by those developments. The road widening and the subsequent relocation is already complete. M.U.D. has an existing transmission water main that is now buried under significant fill, behind a retaining wall, and under paving. And I know relocation is normally done before paving of your water mains, but in this case, it wasn't possible due to the construction schedule. We can't take a transmission main of that size out of service during certain parts of the year, so we have to make sure that we're adhering to the construction schedule. So M.U.D. must relocate this main because it's critical to serve Northwest Omaha, and it will be difficult to fix the main should it have a leak. The county is asking for waivers of fees from both M.U.D. and the city of Omaha. M.U.D. specifically is being asked to waive the overheads for this project that equates to almost $77,000. Due to the size of this development, we believe that there'll be significant water revenue that we will get from this development, and the county is only asking us to waive indirect cost. So let me break that down just a little bit. The total cost of the CNA originally was for $752,000. The indirect costs, or the costs for overhead, is the $77,000 that they're asking to waive. The direct costs, which are at $675,000, they will still be paying those particular parts. We know that this is not something that's normally done, but in the situation, since the county and city are asking us for that, management is recommending approving this request with the mutual understanding that the county, the city, and the adjacent developer co-fund all the remaining relocation costs. And before you ask, I also ask, there is no break history on this particular main, and we did not know about these financial issues associated with the project before the widening of this. It came afterwards. Do you have any questions on this particular one? Okay, item number 6 on page 3 will be the next one I talk about. It's for $807,500. This is for relocation work that is on I Street from 102 to 108th Street. I'd really like to discuss the water portion of this project, even though the CNA is for both. The anticipated start date of this part of the project is this month. The project is required to eliminate conflicts with the proposed grading, paving, and storm sewers that are being done for the city of Omaha and the I Street roadway project. This CNA is one of 3 CNAs for the project. If we had relocated this main completely, it would have been estimated to cost about $2 million. The first CNA that we brought through on this was earlier this summer to use the Pika Sea Snake technology, and that was for $145,000. We used this technology to look at the condition of the main that's out there. We use the same technology, if you recall, I think Corey was up here talking to you about sea snaking in Dodge Street. We did that a couple of weeks ago, so that's the same technology that was done at that time. This particular water main was installed in 1984, and it had 9 breaks due to localized corrosion. The data we got back from that sea snake technology showed that over 90% of the main was still in good condition. This allows us to leave that main intact, for it, which is great. The CNA for this particular one, for the $807,000, is to do the relocation work for this. There are parts of the main that we still need to relocate due to the project itself. We will have a third CNA that will come back to do the parts of the main that we found were deteriorated and we feel that we're at risk. All 3 of those, again, those CNAs added together, we feel will be below the $2 million. We will be coming back to the board and giving you an update on that when we bring the third CNA back for that. This work is not reimbursable for these mains are in public right-of-way. Do you have any questions on this particular one? All right, forging ahead here, item number 7, which you will find on page 3. This one is a $600,000 ask. It's to replace 32 feet of 48-inch water main along Fort Street from 93rd to 105th. And these are just parts, there's different parts we'll be doing for this one. There's a total of 47 miles of concrete pipe in the district's water transmission system. 13 miles of these were produced by the Interpace Company and installed about 50 years ago. There is a high rate of manufacturing defects for these pipes caused by the reinforcing wires. So if you remember, we've talked about this before in the past, that during the manufacturing process, the chemical process they used on some of the wires with the reinforcement wires in there was not done properly, and they became what we call hydrogen embrittlement, and so they became very brittle and they tend to break, right? We have evaluated many parts of these mains, and the parts that we're bringing to you today are a priority that we feel that need to be replaced to make sure that we get them taken care of before we have a break in those areas. So this CNA is being done to replace 6 additional 16-foot pipes in 5 different locations along Fort Street, and we anticipate it to do this work in early 2022. Do you have any questions on this?
Gina, that the 13 miles of the pipe produced by Interpace, how many miles has the district had the opportunity to inspect?
That's a great question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the actual full amount of the concrete pipe that we have there. So we have done between 2007 and 2020, in 2020, we've completed 11 of the condition assessment projects. Of that, we've assessed 21.8 miles of it in there. We found about 1.35% of them having defects. And out of that, there's about 111 16-foot sections that we found that need to be replaced. We've done about 50 of them so far, and this is 6 more. So we eventually want to get up to that in there, but we have estimated that this has saved us tens of millions of dollars by using the condition assessment that is done in engineering and going out and replacing portions of that.
That's terrific work. Thank you for that update.
Okay, so that was the last one in system improvements. So I've got 2 in buildings, plants, and equipment I would like to talk to you about. The first one is item number 3. It's on page 4. This is a ratification for about $2.47 million for the new construction center land purchase. I know we've come to you multiple times and talked to you about this particular project. This CNA is to ratify the purchase of 55 acres of land just southeast of Highway 133 and State Streets for building another construction center. The board has been updated on this process, and this is the CNA to bring forth the known costs that we have at this time. The cost includes land purchase, rezoning, platting services, and the SID required site improvements. A separate CNA will be submitted in the future for design services and construction of the center. The final platting, for your information, we expect to be completed by the end of the year, which will allow us to move forward on this process. Any questions on this particular item? One more to go. So last one I'm going over is item 5 under buildings, plants, and equipment. It is shown on page 4, and this is a ratification. Mark Mendenhall will be speaking to this and showing you a map of it later, so I will quickly go over the information for this one, but this is a $1.7 million purchase of property adjacent to Platte South Water Treatment Plant. The CNA is to ratify the purchase of the land. The district purchased 99.85 acres of adjacent land west of the Platte Water Treatment Facility and north of the well fields. This land will be used for the development of a solids reduction facility should the EPA or NDEE require the district to remove all solids from our discharge stream in the future. The land also falls within the Platte South wellhead protection area, so it will eliminate the possibility of pesticides and herbicides that can potentially contaminate our aquifer. Management was looking to purchase land for future expansion around this area when this came up for sale, and this greatly reduces the needs that we had for land expansion in that area, so it will help us significantly in that. You have any questions on this one?
Hey, Gina, when we
Yes.
make a purchase like this, is it just standard that you do a soil sample so we don't end up with a piece of property that causes problems later on for any abatement issues?
Yeah, we did have some tests, so Mark, why don't you go ahead and speak to that, please?
Good morning, Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President, General Counsel. So I would say normally yes, and I'll speak to, I was going to speak to this, but since we're on it. No, hey, I'm on. I want to answer your question. So this particular property, a Phase 1 environmental study and a Phase 2 were completed in 2008 by the prior owner. They shared both studies with me. In addition, I had a conversation with the environmental scientist company that performed both of those evaluations. Then I also had a conversation with an engineering company that has done some of those studies, most recently for the property that we purchased for the construction center up on Blair High Road. And finally confirmed with the owner that since 2008, this property's only been used for farming activities, so it's never been used for like a sand pit mining operation, for example. So based on that information and based primarily on the review of the Phase 1 and Phase 2, we decided we don't need to do another one today. Soil samples look clean, and the property has a clean environmental. So hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Any further questions?
Gina, I have one on, let's see, on page 3, on number 1, building plants and equipment. How many of these transient pressure monitors do we have in place today? And how do you determine where you're going to put the additional 20?
I'm sorry, Director McGowan, can you repeat which one you're looking at?
Number 1, under buildings, plants, and equipment.
Press the button.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Item number 1, under building, plants, and equipment, I have 2 questions. How many do we have in place today of those pressure monitor recorders? And how do you determine where are the additional 20 going to go?
On this particular one, I would have to get back to you on that particular part of that. The pressure monitoring equipment, you know, the way we determine that is we have engineering that actually looks out there and makes a determination of where they're trying to get the information from. But if I could get back to you on that one, I would appreciate that.
No, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Doyle, President, Director McGowan. I'd like to add that the Infrastructure Integrity Group takes the lead on this. And we started out with, I don't know, half a dozen or so, and we put them in the downtown area. We could almost pick, we have a lot of places we could pick. We're not going to be wrong, but we can be more correct as we get more conditional assessment data. That particular group didn't work out as well, and I don't remember what type of hydrant monitor that was, but we've moved on to a better hydrant monitor. And these 20, while Gina's correct, we'll have some more specific information. They will be put in a high consequence of break, high risk of break area. And we're really excited about this particular one, and the others have already paid off, so we'll get you some good information. But this is a nice step forward, and we've highly encouraged the group to continue to promote this, and the capital expenditures are minimal compared to the cost savings of even one catastrophic, or maybe not even catastrophic. Our breaks are averaging anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 per break, so we've already eliminated some.
So the current ones that we have in place today, have they actually indicated areas that we have to go in and improve and potentially avoided a future break?
Yeah, I would say they have. We found out that downtown, The traffic, for example, is a nuisance for those because they're hearing, they're listening. So we've had to turn them on and off at different times based on no traffic. Yeah, we've had good results, but we'll give you a bigger report on those hydrant monitors in a future meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like-
Yeah, there's a lot of really good information, and it's evolving and changing monthly.
Okay.
I believe if I recall correctly, now I know where you're at. I was on the one under SI. You're under the building plants and equipment. I believe we have 5 hydrants out there that are eye hydrants right now, and this is the addition of 20 of those. And then, but we have other pressure monitoring type things throughout the system, and we do utilize that. I do know that when we saw some pressure fluctuations just recently, engineering was sending information from the eye hydrants that they had gotten to talk to our water supply engineer and make sure that we had all that information, there. So we just want to continue doing the additional ones out there and start using that. But we're using lots of different technology to see what fits best with what we have here at the district and how we can make sure that they're all working together.
And I'm glad to hear Mark say that the infrastructure team is taking the lead on all this, so.
They are,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
I did a little bit of a phone a friend on the concrete mains, the pre-stressed concrete cylinder mains, pipes, PCCP. The 13 miles of suspect pipe have actually been inspected in their entirety more than once. These, if you remember 4th of July several years back, I don't remember what year because it's a bad memory, we had a breakout near 120th and Fort. Fortunately, it was on the other side of the road from where Kelly's Sports Complex is and created a lake out in that field. But when these go, they're catastrophic. They are. So we're taking a look at the extra however many miles. I'm not going to try to do the math, the 47 minus the 13. And we're going to be able to use our hydraulic model. For example, there's a main that leads up to the Field Club reservoir that's concrete that we're taking a look at. And this is almost not fair. I did a quick text back to Masania, and he's feeding me some information, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to highlight the fact that these kind of things that we're doing are hard to appreciate because when it doesn't happen, you don't, when it happens, it's so obvious, but when it doesn't, there's a reason it's not happening. So great work to the team on getting ahead of these amongst every other main that we're trying to get ahead of. So great question there.
Yeah, I have been very impressed with how well this team works together, from the infrastructure integrity through design engineering, even construction. How they are so engaged in what they're doing. Watching the Sea Snake this last week on Dodge Street, how everybody on a Saturday morning showed up and they were all completely engaged to make sure that they got that done. So it's extremely impressive to me, and I'm honored to be a part of that team. So.
Gina and I talk a lot since she's new here again, and we've had these observations together. I agree, and I never want to. I'm glad you're mentioning design engineering and construction and field service and water D and everybody. This is really feeling like a team effort with purpose.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really is. I think we're going to get ahead of this to the point where we can sleep better at night, because it's that kind of a problem we're facing with our infrastructure, and we're really ahead of it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you, Gina. Now, Mr. O'Brien will review the acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates letter.
Good morning. Corey O'Brien, Vice President of Engineering and Construction, filling in for Steph Henn, who's unavailable this morning, so I'll be trying to do justice to her finals letter. Behind tab 6 is our acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates letter. We have 4 finals on the letter this month. 2 are related to water main type projects and 2 are related to plant type projects. All are fairly straightforward. A couple of comments though. Project A and Project C both have small change orders associated with them. Approval of the final payments will also approve the change order number 1 for Project A and C. And that's really the extent of my comments on the finals letter. Are there any questions? If I may, Mr. McGowan, for your one question about the Carter Lake vaults and what it would have cost previous estimates that we were dealing with before we value engineered it were pushing $1 million. And there were still doubts as to whether we would be able to make the vaults waterproof, because they were going to be concrete vaults cast in place. And kind of for a civil engineer, a rule of thumb is when you're dealing with concrete, the one rule is it's going to crack. So how do you truly make something watertight? So we decided to shift our focus and away from making it watertight and protect the equipment. But it was nearing $1 million at that point.
Okay, well, thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Zellers, will you review the bids on materials? Mr. Zeller will review the bids on materials and concretes, please.
Good morning. John Zeller, Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 7. There are just 2 items that I will discuss this morning. The first may be found near the top of page 2. Mr. Zeller's. Oh, sorry.
I'll go ahead and start all over again. All right, good morning. John Zellers, Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 7, and there are 2 items that I plan to discuss. The first may be found near the top of page 2. We accepted bids for a 2-year agreement for our Oracle license renewals. The district has several Oracle products, which in the past were on varying terms and renewal cycles. This agreement aligns all Oracle licensing terms to streamline the process such that all products are licensed together under a 2-year cycle. We received 2 bids for our renewal, in which we are recommending the low bid from Mythics. In the past, collectively, we were paying approximately $370,000 annually for all the licenses and maintenance agreements. Mythic's bid for all products is approximately $362,000 annually. Under the agreement, the district will pay for the renewals quarterly through the 2-year term. The last item may be found on page 3, and I only bring this to your attention as the 2 annuals for fluoride are for an 11-month contract. This is to align this annual with the majority of other water treatment chemicals, which terms start in September. And that's all I plan to discuss, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mendenhall, will you review the renewal of the Vista water franchise?
Yes,
agreement?
sir. Good morning. Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President, General Counsel. Behind tab 9, you'll find a letter recommending authorization of the district to enter into a new franchise agreement with the City of La Vista. City of La Vista is a municipality. Obviously, you all know where it's at, but it's a municipality adjacent to the metropolitan city. We have serviced the City of La Vista via a franchise agreement for several years. I believe the first iteration of that agreement was 1971. We've been engaged, and so thanks to Jason Stanek, Kyle Bowman out of our marketing group, they've been engaged with the City of La Vista administration and their attorney for several months in order to come to this final agreement. The effort here was to take that 1971 franchise agreement, which kind of became the 1996 agreement, and we wanted to tweak it a bit to become more consistent with another franchise agreement and with how we've written our wholesale agreements, just so that we've got a little bit more uniformity amongst all of those. And so we've accomplished that, and the terms of the agreement obviously are behind the letter, but happy to answer any questions. Just high level, this is another 25-year term. There's an automatic renewal. Generally, the conditions are we're going to treat the customers within that city the same as the same manner as we will treat all of our customers within the metropolitan city. And happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mark, under a franchise agreement, do they vote in the elections for the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And so the 2 I would distinguish, and we've already talked about one. So a franchise agreement like Ralston or La Vista, they would be part of our boundaries, our collective boundaries, and so they would be voting for whichever of you that they would happen to fall under. I would distinguish that between Carter Lake. Carter Lake would be an area that we provide water to through a wholesale agreement. A wholesale agreement, we basically stop at a meter, and then from downstream of that meter, then we have no ownership responsibilities. And so the customers in a wholesale agreement are not voting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, well, I am still here, so if, with your permission, I can move on to services and extensions. Behind tab 10, you'll see a recommendation to authorize the installation of the water main. This relates back to last month's creation of the water main district for Earl Avenue and Brune, in Brune Estates. You remember this is a cul-de-sac of approximately 13 lots. Those 13 lots are on a well. That well is experiencing or producing water with some quantity and quality issues. The majority of the owners along Earl Avenue petitioned the district to create the water main district, and what that does then is allow us to go ahead and contract with a contractor, pay the contractor, build the water main, and then move all of those costs to the members of that water main district via their by their tax bill, and then they can pay us over a period of 10 years. And again, we haven't done one of these since 1993, so as we were dusting off our procedures, there is another step that we're taking today. And so last month we created it. We publicized notice of the creation. We sent another communication to all 13 lot owners telling them, making sure that they have an opportunity to object or to protest to the creation. We did receive back protests, but again, we've got now, I think it is, and it's the same number of people that supported it. It's 78.9% of the accessible front footage approved the formation. So the majority of homeowners approved it. I believe it's 3 that do not, and so the majority rules on this. And so this is the next step, and I would recommend that the board authorize the district to install the water main district. And I would note another part of our procedures manual would give those homeowners or those property owners an opportunity to again protest today. And so at the conclusion, and now I'm speaking primarily to them, at the conclusion of the committee meeting, they will have an opportunity to address the board when you make your comments notifying them. And if, I don't know if anyone's present here, I would just ask them to state their name and address and then indicate their support or protest for this next step. And with that, let's see, I think I touched all my notes. Happy to answer any other questions.
Mark, you said a majority is required to approve it. Is that a simple majority, 51%?
Yes, sir. Simple
Okay.
majority. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Oh, and I owed an answer to Director Friend and Director Kavanaugh. These lots are all on septic. They're not connected to Omaha City Sewer. So with that, I think I'm done for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. O'Brien, will you review the proposed main extensions?
Good morning again. Corey O'Brien, Vice President of Engineering and Construction. Behind tab 11, you'll find our main extensions letter this morning. We have 5 main extensions in total, 4 water and 1 gas. The impact of our water main extensions is 42 single residence lots, 25 multi-residence lots, and 1 industrial lot. On the gas side, the impact is 85 single residence lots. If you look down at the map on page 1, you can see that we have a gas main extension and a water main extension in subdivision 1 this month, 1 water main extension in subdivision 4, and then 2 water main extensions in subdivision 7. Okay, if you turn to page 2 on the water main extensions, again, these are straightforward projects this month. I have a couple of comments. Project number 3 is being done under the district's WCD policy, meaning that the developer will be contracting for the installation of the mains themselves. I would also note that water main extension number 1, the developer for that project has also requested district gas for their project. Projects 2, 3, and 4 do lie outside our gas service territory, so we will not be providing gas to those projects. And I don't have any comments on the gas main extension this month, so I would just ask if you have any questions for me. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Savine will review employee wage and salary increases and ratifications. Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning. All right. Good morning. Bonnie Savine, Vice President, Human Resources. I'll begin by recapping employee counts for the end of September for the last couple of years. September 30th, 2020, there were 810 regular full-time employees and 4 regular part-time employees for a total of 814 altogether. To end this September, there were 822 regular full-time employees and 3 regular part-time for a total of 825 regular employees. Also 5 temporary part-time employees and 1 temporary full-time employee. As far as our jobs that are currently in the job placement process, 1 requisition is in the routing process right now, waiting for approvals. 10 jobs are posted at this time, 1 internally, only 1 internal, that is, it's only internal, 5 that are external only, and 4 that are posted both internally and externally. Currently, we have 10 jobs in the application review or interview stage, and we have 7 jobs with 11 selected candidates that are going through the hiring process. All right, now behind tab 11, you will find the wage and or salary increases, or tab 12, the wage and or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases for 9 employees this month. 2 are OAC promotions that are due to the normal posting process. 1 OAC due to the job progression process. 2 OACs are being promoted to an SPA position, and there are 4 other SPAs that are being promoted into other positions, along with 1 sort of natural progression for an SPA employee. And we had 2 new hire ratifications for the month. Do you have any questions? Ms. Cook.
Thank you for your report. I have a question of a general nature. How do you determine if a job is going to be listed internally only or internally and externally? Is there some rubric for that?
There is, and it depends on whether the position is an OAC job, which are our hourly jobs covered under the bargaining agreement, or if it is an SPA job, which is one of our salaried positions. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is exempt. And so particularly, we start with our OAC positions. Those positions have some language in the collective bargaining agreement that requires that they are posted on a Friday and they come down 10 days later, barring any holidays, so a week from that next Monday. Those have to be posted internally within a 6-month time period, so or with every 6 months. So if it's been less than 6 months since it was posted internally and we do not have any continued qualified candidates, or we continue to have candidates that had applied, it is a bit of a process, but then we are allowed to post that externally. So with our OAC jobs, we follow the contract pretty specifically. If it is less than 6 months and there are other candidates that were not selected the previous time that are still eligible to be evaluated, then they are allowed to be considered for an additional opening. As far as our SPA jobs, that is dependent on a conversation with the chain of management within the division or department that position is available in Human Resources. We also try to take into consideration the ease or the quantity of candidates we've seen previously for a similar position or the same position, and whether we are going to try to save ourselves a little bit of time by posting both internally and externally at the same time, rather than back to back, because it does add a couple of weeks then, to the process.
Thank you very much. I think my understanding is that whether you're OAC and under the collective bargaining agreement, you're honoring that, and
Correct.
that a candidate, an internal candidate who wants to maybe move between OAC and SPA would have that opportunity.
Correct.
And that's taken into consideration in these conversations.
Correct. Absolutely.
In the chain of command.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions this morning? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. We will now hear from Geneva Patterson, Manager of Rates and Regulatory Affairs, who will review the proposed changes to the gas rate schedule for contract gas services. Good morning.
Good morning. I am Geneva Patterson, Manager of Rates here at the district. And this morning I'm presenting proposed changes to gas rate schedule CS1, and it's behind tab 13. CS1 is contracted service that is available only to commercial and industrial natural gas customers who have competitive alternate fuel capabilities or alternate energy choices. CS1 is also available to potential economic development customers as an incentive to locate or expand into the district's service area. Currently, under rate schedule CS1, once the original term of the agreement expires, the contract automatically renews month to month for up to 3 years. The proposed change that I'm presenting today is to eliminate the restrictive nature of the existing language, which limits the contract extensions to 3 years and provides management the flexibility to make contract extensions consistent with current market conditions. The proposed rate schedule changes also clarify that the contracted monthly customer service charge shall not be less than the current customer charge included in the customer's applicable firm or interruptible service gas rate schedule. And unless there are any questions, that concludes my presentation this morning. Thank you.
Geneva, it's my understanding that right now we have one customer, Kellogg, that's under that rate schedule. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now back to Mr. Mendenhall. Get to come back up again and talk to us about an item.
Yes, sir. Again, Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President, General Counsel. I am going to be speaking to you all regarding 2 tabs, tab 14 and tab 15. Starting with tab 14, you'll find a recommendation to authorize Mr. Doyle to execute a lease. That lease is with the Omaha Public Power District, and the lease encompasses land near our LNG facility approximately 120th and Military. The portion of land subject to the proposed lease is approximately 27 acres on the north end of the property, so closest to Military Street. Right now, vacant land other than a cellular tower, which we've discussed in previous meetings, our efforts to relocate that tower. This property has been identified by the Omaha Public Power District as ideal for their efforts to support their initiative called Power with Purpose. I'll take a brief moment to indicate to you all, I don't believe they're here to speak, but just to demonstrate their support, I believe we have 2 representatives of OPPD joining us in our adjacent room, Mr. Gary Rule and Jacob Farrell, so certainly appreciate their attendance today. The effort here has been really over a year long, and it spans a couple different COOs, Mr. DeBoer and now Ms. Langle. I'd tell you all, I don't believe we hired Ms. Langle to help bring it to this point, but certainly appreciative of so appreciative of her work on this, in addition to Jim Knight, Dave Bellairs, and Joseph Kim. I want to stress to you all that the lease, while the terms of the lease are done, we are in agreement upon those. The lease references gas supply agreements. The gas supply agreements are not yet completed. We're still negotiating with OPPD on both of those agreements. And so what I'm asking you all is to authorize Mr. Doyle to sign, and he will only sign the lease upon final resolution of both the interruptible and the firm supply agreements. Again, this gas is going to, the intention is the gas will be flowing pursuant to the CNA, part of the CNA that Ms. Langle discussed this morning, will be flowing to certain engines that will provide backup energy production to support OPPD's move to a more renewable platform, I think is how they've described it. General terms of the lease and when I speak to you all about a lease, in terms of our delegation of authority, we don't have a clear line of distinction of when Mr. Doyle can sign or when the board should approve. We felt it best to bring it to you all for a couple different reasons. One, it's a large piece of property, so 27 acres. Two, it's over a long duration. So this is a 50-year lease with options to renew for up to an additional 20 years. So we're talking 70 years of encumbrance on our property. And again, the property right now currently not being used, and we have no plans we had no current plans to utilize that property. One of our efforts behind negotiating this lease was to ensure, because who knows what the energy market is going to look like in 10 years, let alone 60 years. So we want to make sure that the ratepayers of the district are receiving at least a market value for that property, and I believe that we accomplished that through the language on the rent section. So OPPD will be paying M.U.D. an annual rent. That annual rent will be increasing 2% every few years. And then there is basically a debits and credits on that annual rent based on the gas usage or the lack thereof of OPPD at the site. So in year 45, for example, if gas usage has completely fallen off the table, the district will be receiving a market value. If gas usage is high, then the district will not be receiving a market value, but will be receiving a gas revenue. So that was the trade-off. Our intention today is to continue negotiations with OPPD on both supply agreements, and then bring the terms of those agreements to Directors Bagley, Cook, and Mr. McGowan with the AEF&R committee, hopefully within the next week to 2 weeks. I believe that we're close, but that'll be the goal here, is to walk you three through the arrangements with OPPD in terms of the supply. But again, the terms of the lease, I feel confident that we've negotiated a deal that is satisfactory to M.U.D. as well as OPPD. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Mark, just to clarify, when you bring that to the committee, that you serve AEF&R,
yes, sir.
We'll review that and everything, then I assume that the committee will bring it back, or you'll bring it back to the board at the next meeting.
I believe, are you being signaled to push your button again?
I'm sorry.
No,
I'll
it's
start
okay.
again. When you come to the AEF&R committee, like you said, to review the rates in the next week or two, I assume then that the committee or you will bring that back to the board at the next meeting.
We certainly can. Haven't quite gotten there yet. So at this point, the arrangement with the supply agreements is based in part on our interruptible rate, but also the rate schedule that Ms. Patterson just presented to you all, which is a rate schedule, again, that we have available for certain customers that have alternative fuel arrangements or ability. And it gives management, it gives the district opportunities to negotiate in order to secure that customer. And so if we're operating under CS1, then we're operating within the rate schedule. That's the reason that we wanted to present it just to the committee. But certainly, after presentation to the committee, if you three feel comfortable to, or if your preference is to bring it to the board, we'll do so, but we'll certainly want to do so in a way that respects the sensitivity that OPPD may have in terms of the competitive nature of the Southwest
Right.
Power Pool.
I guess my question is, does the board need to formally approve that?
Could I take this one, Mark?
Please.
Mark Doyle, President. What we're asking here is to give me the authority to sign this on your behalf, the trust, and that's what you are voting on today. If we get to a position where maybe we're not as comfortable as we are now, and we are very comfortable, we've brought this a long way, we'll check in with the committee quickly. I mean, we're shooting for an October 15th date, but we'll communicate with the full board or whatever the committee wants to do, but we're asking for the approval to sign it with that additional check-in. Mark,
Okay.
agree?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And yeah, I also want to emphasize, as Mark did, the work that's gone into this, and I include Mark in that, and Joe Shafford, and the entire senior team, and the whole team, both sides, our partners, OPPD and M.U.D, and I appreciate that Gary and Jake are here attending today, just to, it's really a monumental project that we've embarked on with our partners to back up their move to renewable energy. It's natural gas that is the best option to power what's needed for electricity when maybe wind and sun aren't available. So I want to thank everybody publicly to get this to the point that we have gotten it to, and we're really optimistic. We never dreamed, my predecessors included, that the land that we had out there could be used for this purpose. But we like options, and this land became a wonderful option for this gas plant. So thank you. Did that,
Yeah, that's fine.
long answer, I'm sorry.
No, that's
Did that-
fine. I
Okay,
just-
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have more of a comment. It appears that this may be a good opportunity to tell M.U.D's story in conjunction with OPPD about our commitment to sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I'm looking forward to us making the most of that when it happens.
Director Cook, great point. We plan to, and yes, you're right. This is still a fossil fuel, but it's the natural gas has been responsible for most reductions in emissions through its replacement for coal. Something else will happen in the future, but in the meantime, the emissions reduction story is really big. So thank you for pointing that out.
And just a comment to follow up on what Tanya said. Great job by the district and its team. This has been a time-consuming process, and I'm also pleased to work with our colleagues at OPPD on this initiative. I think it's great that both the utilities are coming together on this, and we can make it a cooperative relationship.
We have a lot of customers in common, that's for sure.
Thank you, Mark. Will you now cover your second item under this, ratification of the property near Platte South?
Yes, sir, very good. Behind tab 15, you'll find a letter recommending ratification of entering into a purchase agreement. You'll see eventually, it should show up on the TV here, a map of the property in question. That map shows up the property in question is in green. So shaded in gray, you'll see our existing Platte South property consisting of approximately 600 acres running from La Platte Road past Zweibel Creek, which encompasses Cedar Island down to the Platte River. We've got approximately 40 wells, or not approximately, I think we've got exactly 40 wells. Those 40 wells, as you know, are capable of producing up to 60 million gallons of treated water per day. The Lyman Ritchie Iski property shaded in green had been a farm, about 99.8 acres of farm ground. I believe corn and soybeans have been produced on that property since 2008. The owner of the property indicated within the past few weeks that they were going to take this to a farm auction. And so within a very short period of time, we were able to pivot to participate in a farm auction. Let me tell you, I've never done one of those before, but it was quite an experience. We were the successful bidder. It was a competitive bidding process. There were other landowners that were bidding for this property, even though the majority of it is in floodplain, and some of it was underwater back in 2019. It is a well-producing farm. I believe the broker for the seller had said, well, you just don't believe what that farmer produces out of that property. And so there was competitive bids, primarily between the district and another landowner to the north. We were able to secure this property for, let me see, $14,050 per acre. Prior to participating in this auction, what we did, we had a conversation with our commercial real estate brokerage firm that has helped us out on a couple recent deals to identify a range of what a reasonable price per acre would be based on recent sales in the area, and there are very few recent sales just right at this area, so you have to expand it a bit in that South Sarpy County site. We identified about an average of $8,500 per acre, ranging up to a little bit more than almost $16,000 per acre. The auction in question was actually two sites. There were two farms, so the one shaded in green, and then if you jump to the left you'll see another farm. It just kind of looks like hay ground there. That was also on the auction block. We chose not to bid, where Mr. Roberts has the hand there moving. That was also on the auction block. We chose not to bid on that property once the Iski property that we were the successful bidder on, once that price went up past $10,000 per acre, we felt that, I don't know, the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze so much in terms of the value to the ratepayers. We identified that Iski property as our primary target. We identified $15,000 per acre as our maximum, and we were able to secure it for $14,050. Again, I spoke during Ms. Langle's CNA to answer Mr. Kavanaugh's question about environmental. The environmental's clean. So really the only thing that we're planning on doing right now is have an ALTA survey, so a survey of the property boundaries completed, and then we'll work to move to close on this property by October 28. And the reason that we think that it's important to secure this property is probably threefold. One, you will recall we are subject to Clean Water Act requirements known as the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES permits, which could require the district in the future to remove solids, so kind of the lime discharge from our production, from our production efforts. Right now, the current plan would be to site that discharge system at property that we sold, we retained easements on, but property that we sold to the NRD near the Missouri River and Platte River sites. That was never really an ideal scenario, but it was kind of the best that we had in terms of trying to identify the lowest cost solution to the elimination requirement. This Iski property would be much more ideal than that current plan. And so it gives us an option to utilize that for discharge elimination. In addition, we can eliminate farming operations that utilize pesticides, herbicides. So we create a little bit more of a better environment for the aquifer. And finally, I'd note a greater security posture by owning that additional 99 acres. So again, the request is to approve or ratify the decision to enter into the purchase agreement for this 99 acres. Happy to answer any questions.
Mark, your final bid, was that when you scratched your ear?
You know, that's funny. You should say that because you get into a rhythm. I mean, this is an auctioneer, you know, hey, 50-50, you know, and they're doing the song kind of thing. And you're going back and forth with another person, and the auctioneer almost identifies, you don't have to raise the paddle up very high because it goes very fast. I mean, you're raising it like $100 increments every second it's going up, and it's like, geez, who's this other person on the other line here? And so it's almost like a head nod gets the auctioneer's attention by that point. But it's funny you should mention that because it's very close to that. So you got to pay attention when you're doing that.
So Mark and I were texting, he was that last minute. I had to say, pack up your stuff and get out of there. You're having too much fun. I didn't. That's bad humor. But it is the ability to interact these days is almost too good.
Yep.
But did a really nice job there, and I don't know if you're going to go out and speculate on farmland, but I'd say don't do that.
No.
And it's my understanding that it wasn't in the budget, but we had a placeholder in future budgets for $5 million for this.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify that a little bit, Director McGowan. This is Mark Doyle, President. The placeholder for $5 million, we want to be real transparent. That would have included more land. The placeholder's actually $3.5 million. Things were moving so quickly, I haven't gotten back around to each of you to explain that. But it's a significant placeholder. We didn't end up with the extra parcel. Don't know if we'll need to anymore, but that was a placeholder that's pretty hard to come into focus with to have an accurate number because this discharge permit requirement is it's big. So this is a great step forward. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to clarify.
That's why I want to clarify, because I think it's a significant step forward, and it was a great result. Yeah. Thank you.
And we also want to thank the board for putting your trust in us to do something like that. It's not comfortable, but knowing that we all spoke, we all had a conversation is really very liberating for us in order to go out and do the right thing. We react. If you say government doesn't move quick, we moved really quick on this one. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, now Committee of the Whole, Jim Knight will review an update to the LNG plant's capital improvement project. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. Jim Knight, Vice President, Gas Operations. You can find my letter behind tab A. At the February 2021 board meeting, the board approved a CNA $76 million to replace the LNG plant's liquefaction and vaporization systems. Our design consultant, CHI Engineering, and the M.U.D project team have been working together closely on the new plant design since early spring. Major pieces of LNG vaporization equipment, which include new LNG pumps, have been ordered and are scheduled to arrive next February, with construction to follow. The vaporization upgrades will be completed by the fall of 2022 in time for the next heating season. This will increase the output capacity of the LNG plant from 60,000 a day to 150,000 a day, and that's completed. As detailed design work has progressed, the project teams have agreed upon a revised plant layout that recommends the relocation of the regeneration heater and gas pre-treatment valve skid to the east side of the plant. The purpose of this equipment is to remove the carbon dioxide and odorant from the natural gas before the natural gas is cooled to 260 degrees below zero and liquefied. Relocating this equipment to the east side of the plant will provide the following benefits. This will reduce the liquefaction system downtime from 16 to 14 months, as equipment can be built prior to disabling the liquefaction system. It will also provide additional space for the construction and then the ongoing preventative maintenance of this new equipment, of the new vaporization liquefaction systems. CHI has provided an updated project estimate of $65 million, which includes an additional $4 million to relocate and replace the regeneration heater and gas pretreatment valve skid in 2023 and 24. The regeneration heater was previously replaced in 2014 and has been experiencing some operational problems in the recent past. Although I do have some good news here. For about the last 2 weeks, the heater has run fine after some modifications have been made to some of the valves and some of the burner management system on this heater. So it's been, cross our fingers, it's been running better here lately. The new total project estimate is $79 million, which includes a 15% contingency factor of $10.3 million. This is $3.1 million or 4% over the board-approved CNA of $76 million. District procedures state revisions in estimated CNA costs, which exceed 10% and $25,000 of the original CNA estimate must be approved by the board of directors. Since this revised estimate is only 4.1% over the original CNA amount, board approval is not required. However, since this is a scope change and does increase estimated project costs, management wanted to bring this to the board for your information. Any questions? Director Kavanaugh.
Jim, it says 79 million including sales tax. Why are we paying sales tax?
We got to pay sales tax on the equipment that we're buying. And we normally do.
Doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, it's equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think we're exempt from sales tax
No.
on equipment. Now, on our water service, that's a different story. A little way to bring that up.
And I did run that by Mr. Shafford, and he verified it, so.
Okay.
Well, I believe him.
I do too.
It's a good question, though, maybe.
That bothers me, but.
Okay, well, we'll have a little discussion about that. Again, Mark Doyle, President, I'd like to underscore what Jim Knight's telling you today, that even though it is under the amount that we need to bring this back to the board, we felt it's a good opportunity for us to come and be totally transparent and not just bring this back as a change order. A lot of discussion about this. We could have probably said, no, let's leave this regen heater the way it is, but it's the wrong thing to do, and Jim and his team made a great case of why it came up late in the process. It's almost like, now's the time to really take a hard look at this. And there were some very significant safety issues that came to light on the way you had to approach now. So thanks for bringing this back, and hopefully we have your support on this. Again, as Jim said, it's a great project. It's to be able to expand that plant from 60 to 150 is key. The next polar vortex, I hope that's way beyond my tenure.
It's after my, hopefully it's after my career.
It's the insurance and the ability to continue to supply this affordable, safe natural gas, so.
Director Cook.
Yes, I have a question as it relates to purchasing something in 2014 that is having operational problems in 2021. As a person who just buys things to consume in the regular way, is that, did somebody save the receipt? Is it under warranty? I mean, how does that?
We did look. The warranty period ended in 2015, of course, and the problems is more having to do with, okay, it's a heater, and the heat goes up and down, and there's air and gas valves that have to be monitored. I think it was some of the problems we're having in the safety systems themselves. It would shut down, and then we'd restart it, be fine. We think there is actually a sensor that verifies the flame is what it's supposed to look like. And we think that's where the issue was, and that's the change we made here just a couple weeks ago. It was a very minor change, very minor. And for the last 2 weeks, it's been running fine.
Thank you.
You bet.
Another reason why we're bringing it back ahead of time and not a change order, because I asked the same question. I buy a 5-year warranty on a TV and it always fails in the 6th year. But this is such critically complex equipment that we had a lot of discussion about that, so I'm glad you asked it. It does make you kind of wonder. So we'll be talking to the manufacturer of the next one about that.
Jim, a quick question. Since you're our resident meteorologist, what does the night almanac say for weather for winter upcoming?
What I've been hearing, and we were at the Driver Cook's crossing her fingers. Enjoy the fall. No, hold on. October and November are supposed to be very nice, and we're seeing that. And then the winter, they're saying slightly colder than normal, and maybe a little more snow. But if you look at like the National Weather Service forecast for the winter. We're right on the southern half of the country. Southern tiers is above normal for most of the winter. We're just right on the edge of it. So maybe it'll just include Omaha.
Even with the hand gestures, you're like the map. You're all over it, man. Great. Thanks, Jim.
You bet.
Jim, LNG, to me, is the single best thing that M.U.D. does. And it positions us in the market, and as with our customers, I think you're to be commended, right along with the CPAP. Those two things are so big for this district, and thank you. You've been behind a lot of this over the years. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Especially the CPAP. You really got us going on that.
Thank you.
So,
As a
thanks.
follow-up to Tim and Jim, I did ask Jim to make a few comments about the winter, and you've already led into it.
Stole your thunder.
Yeah, but that's all right. And I think everybody saw the editorial comment M.U.D. put in the paper last night. Great letter, Mark, to the people of Omaha, the ratepayers. And Mark did distribute the talking points in September about the things we're doing, like Tim said, the CPEP and the LNG and propane, how we buffered our cost of gas to our ratepayers. And, you know, that vortex we had last, was it February, or something like that?
Yes.
We came through that pretty well with using, like Tim said, our LNG, our propane, our CPEP, and northern storage. All those assets that we have in place to manage the winter weather did our ratepayers really good. Black Hills and Mid-American customers are still paying for that. They have a surcharge over a number of years that they're paying for all the cost of gas they had to go out and pay. So our price of gas that we served our customers today is cheaper because they have that big surcharge that's on their monthly bill. Going into this winter, you know, we have our assets in place again, and there's been a lot of news, a lot of words on the news about the weather this coming, or the energy prices. Oil hit another 12-month high yesterday, and natural gas prices are up, and they say heating your home could cost 2 or 3 times this year what it did last year. Well, we're in a good place that I don't think that would impact M.U.D. in that kind of a vein, I don't think, but who knows. But I guess I just want to say what Tim reinforced, that our LNG, our propane, our CPAP, some of the things we've done to position ourselves for those vortex and cold weather and to manage our costs are awesome. We've done a great job, and we appreciate that. Now, I'd like to follow up with just a simple question for you. You probably know off the top of your head. I'd like to know how we stand filling up our LNG for the winter, what's the status of our tank, what's the status of our propane tank, and our northern storage. We're getting close to November here, and where are we at with that?
Okay, I'll start with our northern storage. We lease 2.7 million decatherms of capacity of storage on northern natural gas. That's approximately 12% of our winter needs. That will be filled at the end of this month. We've been filling that starting in June, so it's normally a June through October injection season. What's nice about it, especially could be for this winter, is the average price of that gas is around $3.70. If you looked at future markets right now, the gas prices are in the $6 to $7 range.
Are they really?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that will provide a nice hedge as we go into winter. I got to be a little careful about talking about the peak shaving quantities. But what I will say is, in open session, we are on track to achieve our target levels at both the propane caverns and the LNG plant to meet our target levels. We're in good shape.
Okay.
So.
Did we use all our northern storage last year, or did we roll any inventory over to this year?
Mike, Director McGowan, if we rolled any, it was a very small amount. So
okay.
We used most of it, yeah.
Okay. And you said the futures for gas is in the $6 range? Is that for December?
Well, it's $6 for November. It's in the 7s for the December, January, February.
Okay.
And I can make a few comments, just more of kind of macro comments on what's going on.
Jim, before you do that, I just wanted to mention the reason I sent out a little more information than usual this weekend with the talking points. We also work real hard to educate all of our employees who interact with their neighbors, their friends, their relatives. They're out on Nextdoor, so we can all talk about this in the same way. So that was the point of that, and then also for the board. So I'm glad you asked for the update, and a little more information than you needed, but that's why that was provided.
It was a great article in the paper, and it really crystallized the things that we're doing for our ratepayers. And I think we need, the board members, I want the board members to have all this information, your talking points, because we get questions. Ratepayers will say, hey, what's going on? And if our bills go up a lot this year, we're going to get questions, but we have answers that we can provide to our ratepayers. So.
And I can't take total credit for that. The corporate communications group interacts with all of the departments, and then we work together on a final draft. So
yeah,
thank you for pointing that out.
What were you gonna say, Jim?
Oh, I was just gonna make a few comments on the kind of the big picture as far as gas prices. The concerns right now is storage levels nationally are about 16% below the last year, about 9% below the 5-year average. So that's the concern. Storage levels are lower going into winter than they were last year. Last year they were near record levels. Part of the reason that they are lower, if you go back to 2020, when the pandemic hit and the economies all slowed down, energy prices, I mean, you remember paying $1.50 a gallon for gasoline, right? And oil was down to $30 a barrel. Producers backed off drilling. Here in the U.S., it was, at one time last year, there was close to 900 drilling rigs, which are the machines that actually drill for oil drilling, for oil and natural gas. That dropped to 250 last year. It's back in the 530 range. So that's having an impact now. And on the demand side, Europe had a really tough winter last year, so they're importing significant amounts of liquefied natural gas from the U.S. Just keep this in mind, we're approximately 10% of all the natural gas produced in North America is being exported around the world. When I was talking about $6, $7 gas here, in Europe and Japan, they're looking at $30 and $35. So that increased demand has had an impact on our storage levels, and that's why we're seeing some of the higher prices. The other thing I would like to mention too, we were talking a little bit about CPEP. CPEP will supply 60% of our gas supplies. Our contracts, our long-term prepaid contracts with CPEP will provide 60% of our gas supplies in 2022. This year in 21, those contracts will provide $4.5 million of savings below market value. For gas, that will increase to $7.5 million in 2022. And then in 2023 through 26, it will be $12 million a year. As one of our contracts, CPEP contracts, the discounts go way up starting in September of 2022. And that any other questions, I guess?
Any questions? I just want to reiterate what Tim said. You and your whole team and the management team at M.U.D. has done a great job preparing for the winter and having tools in place to mitigate the impact of real high gas costs like the vortex or what's coming this winter. But I think we're in a good position, more so than a lot of other companies, and appreciate the effort and the strategy that you guys have implemented.
State Director McGowan, could I make a comment on a follow-up to what Mr. Knight just shared?
Yes. Who's speaking?
Joe Shafford.
Oh.
So good morning. I'm sorry, I'm in my office.
Yeah.
Good morning, Joe Shafford. I serve as Chief Financial Officer for the district. And the perspective I wanted to share is, I know that when you read press clippings, the average person, and they see that natural gas is projected to increase by dramatic numbers, I think it's important to understand that the cost of natural gas is only part of the bill that a customer of ours pays. So let me put this into a bit of perspective in a format the board is accustomed to hearing. So when we present in December, when we talk about our budget, kind of finalizing that process, we typically provide a stacked bar chart that shows all the components of an average residential customer's gas bill. And when we did this in December of 2020, looking at the 2021 budget, that bar chart reflected a total average cost for the average residential customer at $597 a year. Of that amount, $221 or 37% represented the cost of gas, which is a direct pass-through to our customers. If you freeze all the components, because we're not done with the 2022 budget, so I can't share with you the updated other pieces of the bar chart, but if you simply plug projected 2022 cost of gas into the 2021 bar chart, the number increases from $597 to $783, which is a $186 increase or 31% higher. Of that 783, 405 is the projected gas cost. And this, by the way, is reflective of the estimates that Jim Knight and Dave Belair's provide to us so that we can assemble the budget. The underlying or implicit cost of gas is up dramatically year over year to the tune of 80+%. But I don't want people to think that their whole bill is going up by 80%. Jim has shared with you what we're doing to try to mitigate the cost impact to our customers, as well as the volatility that we avoid by our peak shaving capacity. But, I think the other thing to be mindful of if you're a customer listening to this message is there's things you can do. The first and foremost is conservation efforts. Lower your thermostat by a degree. That'll reduce load. For customers who may have difficulty paying their bill, please reach out to us and reach out to our customer service reps who can perhaps match you with an agency that can help. And then finally, for customers who are in a position to help their brethren, we encourage them to donate to our home fund, which is, geared towards helping in circumstances like this. So I wanted to offer that additional perspective because I think it's important to translate this into what it means to our average residential customer.
Thank you, Joe. Good input. Hey, while I got you online here, I was going to ask another question. Speaking of the 2022 budget,
right.
Do you plan to come to the board in November with the capital and then in December with the expense and rate recommendations?
Yes, it'll be the same schedule as before. We'll discuss personnel as well as proposed capital in November, and then we'll present a final picture in December. As you may recall, when we're doing the presentation in November, given the number of kind of moving parts to figure out how this ultimately affects all the financials and the cash flows, we call it, as submitted and certainly subject to change, but that is the plan for this year as well, Director McGowan.
Okay, thank you.
Say, could I offer one more tidbit in response to Director Kavanaugh's question on sales tax? As Tim mentioned, Denise Dolezal, who runs our LNG plant, did reach out to me for confirmation of this because the supplier was indicating that the sale of this equipment was subject to sales tax. And the determining issue of sales tax in this situation is the way the Nebraska Department of Revenue defines manufacturing. And if an action or series performed upon tangible personal property results in the property being reduced or transformed, it's considered manufacturing and therefore not subject to sales tax. So one could argue that the state of natural gas is being transformed into a liquid and back to a vapor in this plant. However, natural gas is not deemed as tangible personal property, and therefore the plant does not meet the definition of a manufacturing facility.
Joe?
So you've heard all the Nebraska Department of Revenue code that you care to today.
Joe, this is Tim.
Yes.
Not to be confused with property tax, personal property tax, because that sure sounds like the definition of paying property tax is what you do with the property. If you convert it into use from its original state, then it's subject to property tax. I'm just curious about how that's different than sales tax. I don't know.
The code I was reading was directly from the sales tax code from the Nebraska Department of Revenue.
All right. Thank you.
You've probably, sorry, Director Kavanaugh, and you've probably heard over the years a number of legislators who brought forward proposals about sales tax exemptions. And if you've read it, I always bring up the bull semen because, of course, it's an input, but I just think that the laws in terms of policy in our state may lend themselves more to our friends who work in agriculture, because natural gas must be a thing, otherwise we wouldn't be able to use it to create heat, right? So that, I don't know if anybody else, any other utility companies around the country are, have to deal with that same definition of what an input is, but, or if that's, you know, we've given up that fight, but I was surprised when I saw the list of things that are exempt from sales tax in Nebraska.
Well, Tanya, a lot of that pertains to customers on the receiving end of like water. They should, in my opinion, they shouldn't be paying sales tax on water, but they do. But we're a tax exempt organization, which I don't think we should be paying sales tax. But I stand corrected. Also, I wanted to commend Gina for your talk on KFAB radio. You hit all the points on that, so that was very good. And I think Gary Saddlemeyer was impressed with what you did, so thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Do any board members know further comments or questions? If not, I'd like to mention that due to COVID-related precautions, members of the public have access to the meeting via WebEx connection that is set up in an adjacent conference room at the headquarters building here. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board at this time? And if so, please indicate your intentions to the moderator.
Mr. McGowan, other than our OPPD partners, we don't have any public in attendance. No questions, sir.
Okay. Thank you. If the committee meetings have now concluded. It is 9:46. Let's meet back here at 9:55. Thank you.
I couldn't hear who mentioned bowl season. Oh. They were talking, I was out in the lobby talking, so. Bowl. I do love a good bowl season story, but sorry I missed it. That's what I kept out.
Okay, it's 9:55. I would like to call the meeting to order. I am Mike McGowan, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Utility District Board of Directors, and I'd like to welcome you all to the regular board meeting this morning, October 6, 2021. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website at the meeting's conclusion. I would like to announce that due to COVID, we are limiting the number of attendees at today's meeting to the extent possible. Unvaccinated people are required to wear masks, and all attendees are encouraged to abide by the 6-foot social distancing rule. In the interest of protecting the health and safety of any members of the public who wish to address the board, they may do so from an adjacent conference room. Thank you for your cooperation in this regard. Roll call, please.
Frost.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Bagley.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Friend.
Here.
Open Meetings Act. I'd like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall in the back of the boardroom, and a copy is also available in the nearby conference room set aside for members of the public who may attend. And now those who wish to participate will say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes for the committee meeting and regular board meeting for September 1st, 2021. Okay, got a motion?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Item number 5, Director Frost.
Agenda 5, capital expenditures. I move we approve the capital expenditures as presented by Senior Vice President Gina Langle at the committee meetings and is outlined in her letter to the committee dated September 28, 2021.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just want to point out item 3 under building, plants, and equipment, the ratification for the new construction center. To paraphrase President Biden, this is a big deal for the district. And it's been a long time in coming, and I know looking down at Directors Kavanaugh and Friend, this goes back about 15 or 20 years probably, the discussion about this. So I know what led to this decision wasn't ideal, but I think it's a big day for the district to have a second construction center, and I'm pleased that the district is ratifying this today.
Well, thank you. That's great comments because I think we're all in agreement with that.
Can you quote somebody else, though, Jimmy, next time?
President Obama?
Yes, that's a good one.
Director Begley, thank you for pointing that out. I know Director Friend and I don't know how many years ago it was, but we had a meeting in Classroom A at the Operations Center, if you remember, about this very topic, and it started and stopped a few times. But this is a big day, and while we were planning it, the item you mentioned maybe sped up a little bit of what we're doing, but it is good to have another building in place right now in the event of some unforeseen circumstance that would limit the construction center that we have. But in order to grow and to meet the needs of our infrastructure replacement and to have a rock-solid business continuity plan for that facility, we're really looking forward to the day that we can grow our crews, dispatch out of 2 areas, serve this community in even a better way than we already are. So I need to stop and say thank you for your support on this. It's not easy, it takes a while, but we don't take that support for granted, so thank you for pointing that out.
Well said, Mr. Doyle, thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Agenda 6, acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates. I move we approve the acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates as presented by Mr. O'Brien at the committee meetings and is outlined in the letter from the Director of Plant Engineers, Stephanie Hann, dated September 29th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
I move we approve the bids on materials and contracts as presented by Vice President John Zellers at the committee meetings and is outlined in the letter from the Director of Procurement, Sherry Meisinger, dated September 24, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Agenda 8, I would request that the notice of purchases letter dated September 21st, 2021 from Mrs. Meisinger be placed on file. Agenda 9, I move we approve the proposed renewal of the La Vista Water franchise agreement as outlined in Senior Vice President Mark Mendenhall's letter to the committee dated September 29th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Busy day, Jack.
Yeah.
Okay, agenda item number 10.
Agenda item number 10, resolution to install a water main district. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Mr. Mendenhall. This was also discussed in committee, by the way. Move approval as outlined in the memo from Mr. Mendenhall dated September 30th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes. Item number 11, main extensions, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Corey O'Brien dated September 29th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Jim, will you take number 12?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I sure will. Item 12, wage and/or salary increase and ratifications. I move that we approve the wage and/or salary increase and ratifications as discussed in committee this morning, presented by Ms. Savine and outlined in her memo dated September 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Agenda item number 13, I move we approve the proposed changes to the gas rate schedule for contract gas service as presented by Ms. Patterson and as outlined in her letter to the committee dated September 28, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Item number 14, OPPD lease. I move we approve the proposed OPPD lease as presented by Mr. Mendenhall and as outlined in his letter to the committee dated September 30, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Agenda number 15, ratification of purchase of property near Platte South Water Treatment Plant. I move we approve the ratification of the property purchase near the Platte South Water Treatment Plant as presented by Mr. Mendenhall and as outlined in his letter to the committee dated September 29th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion?
Any chance of going through the roll call vote like an auctioneer for this item? Mary?
Be careful what you just
I know.
Roll call?
Frost.
Aye.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Do any board members have any comments they would like to share or any discussion items at this time?
I have one quick comment I'd like to make at the expense of getting Director Cook's attention. So there's an organization, a philanthropic organization, a nonprofit based in Lincoln called The Block. Is it okay if I mention this?
Okay.
All right.
It was in the papers.
Well, this is a little hard because it's kind of an age-based thing, and I'm a little sensitive to this. So you may have seen the headline in the paper recently that The Block, which is made up of many business leaders and state officials across the state, recognizes those that are more seasoned Nebraskans. More specifically, it's called over 50. So over 50 years of age, but contribute to the economy and the state of Nebraska for good. And they recognize folks in the areas of nonprofit and many other things. So the reason that this is important is that those over 50 make up about 34% of the population as of 2018, but contribute 39% to the state's gross domestic product. Thank you very much. And this event is designed to at least take a look at those folks that have brought this forward in the state. And there were over 1,100 applications, and they narrowed it down to the top 50. And I'm proud to say that Director Cook is one of those 50 and being recognized for many contributions, of which are too numerous for me to mention, but most recently, policy lead for the National Black Caucus Association. Of course, your tenure in the Nebraska legislature. And I'd like to add your tenure on the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. So very well deserved, and we're very proud of you, and thank you for letting us mention it.
Thank you. Thanks. It seems like a week and a half ago when I got the 10 Outstanding Young Omahans Award. But it's a blessing to be over 50 or over, some folks don't get here at all, period, with or without volunteering. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. That's very nice. Any board members have anything else they'd like to discuss at this time? I'd like to mention that due to COVID-related precautions, members of the public have access to the meeting via WebEx connection that is set up in a conference room adjacent to this boardroom. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board at this time? And if so, please indicate your intentions to the moderator.
No questions from the public, sir.
Thank you. We will not have any closed session today, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Ross?
Aye.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
We are now adjourned. Thank you.